My name's Richard Stafford-Bell and I'm the Principal Officer for Invasive Marine Species with the Victorian Government Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and I'll pay my respects to their elders past and present. So today I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview about some of the work that I do, which is in managing invasive marine species. But before I begin, I received a Bill Borthwick Student Scholarship back in 2012, I think it was, for the work that I was doing as part of my PhD, which was looking at a population ecology of a seagrass species. And the scholarship was incredibly helpful and allowed me to do a lot more field work than I'd previously planned. So, moving on to what I do, so I work in the invasive marine species area, and these things are introduced marine plants, animals or algae. They're often introduced via vessels, so we get a lot of commercial shipping coming into Victoria, and a lot of our historical introductions, particularly like this is a poster child, the Northern Pacific sea star, has been introduced via ballast water. So we get these occurrences of marine species occurring in port and marina infrastructure, being hotspots for the introduction. Unfortunately, when they arrive, they generally have no natural predators, which makes it really difficult to control them, and we need to find out about them as soon as possible. Range of different impacts, so environmental impacts, predation, competition and disturbance, economic impacts, so fouling of hulls and internal seawater systems and aquaculture impacts, and then you get some social amenity ones, so not just amenity but also human health as well. So where do we use research and where do we use data to help manage invasive marine species? So one of the key things that we do is undertake surveillance, and this is critical for us to identify new incursions of pests. And as I previously mentioned, it is really hard to do anything about marine pests once they get a foothold. And so early detection is absolutely critical. Once we do find something in the environment, we delimit the population. So we use surveillance data to actually identify how far that population has spread. And all of this work is done in partnership with industry and the research community, businesses, the general community, general public. And we use a range of tools. The big one is eDNA, or environmental DNA, and we do barcoding approaches and also quantitative PCR. We collect samples using water samples, we use plankton tows, and we also have settlement arrays, which we basically just throw in the water and we let things grow in it for a couple of months. And then we retrieve them and see what's grown. Next area is, once things have already become established, is identifying what the distribution of those pests are. So these are for the established species that we have, things like the Northern Pacific sea star or Undaria or Pacific oyster or any number of the introduced species that have arrived in Victoria. Again, it's a partnership approach, so we work with industry, government, research providers, so universities and private business, and also members of the public. Here we use a range of tools. We have trapping, so this could be crab traps. We have diver surveys where they actually do a physical dive. We use remote operated vehicles, which is basically like an underwater drone that we can capture, we can get samples with, we can do photos and videos and what have you. We have a number of different ways that the public can report marine pests to us. We have a dedicated reporting line on the Agriculture Victoria website. We have a dedicated email address, and we're currently using SnapSendSolve, which is a free app that people can download. Again, we also use eDNA as well. The other one that we use data for is risk assessment. So what are the new species out there that we need to be aware of? We use risk assessment to determine the likelihood of introduction of pests to Victoria, whether or not they'll establish and spread, and then some of the potential impacts. So introduction to Victoria, we look at vessel data. So what's the last ports of call? How long are they going to remain in port? What known pests are from the source population, or the source location rather? How many times those vessels are coming in? What sort of vessel it is? Because different vessels have different risk profiles. We look at the literature for, what are the salinity and temperature requirements of the species? What's the receiving location, temperature and salinity? Do they match up? Is it likely to be able to survive once it gets into Victoria? We look at biological traits. What's the reproductive output of these species? Is it broadcast spawner? Is it a generous predator? All these sort of things to see what sort of an impact these things are going to have. And then we also use a system known as Vessel Check, which looks at the biofouling on international vessel arrivals that provides us with a lot of information. So that's in a nutshell. That's some of the work that I do and some of the areas where we use science and research actually to provide us with data. A couple of email addresses here. So we've got marinepests@agriculture.vic.gov.au and we also have our website vic.gov.au/marine-pests. Thank you very much.